Hey, hey, let's hope my camera works this time. My name's Steve Jaguar.
And I'm his co-host, Mike Foster.
All right. Welcome once again to your virtual newsletter for an impatient world. Visual newsletter, virtual, either way. All things cloud native Kubernetes, security news, automation tool demonstrations, things that just make you go WTF, and of course, everything that is big spenders in the industry.
And we're coming back from a little week hiatus with KubeCon going on. A bunch of announcements that we want to talk about that we'll get into. And we're going to take a look at Weave GitOps at the end of the day. A little demo Steve's going to show us.
I gotcha.
Yeah, got a bunch coming for you. Thanks for joining. And welcome to... Yes.
I feel we can always tell when we had a week off.
Yeah, it's just a little slower than usual.
We forget what do we say at the beginning?
Yeah. And actually, there's so much to pack in today's show. I almost rambled for a lot longer than I normally do. Anyways, if people are joining online, if you're on Twitch, follow, leave us some comments in the chat. They'll pop up. We'd love to talk to you, hear what you think. There are a lot of products and open source announcements that we want to talk about today. So curious to get all your thoughts. And if you're on YouTube, all the links to the show are in the description. We'd love it if you share the show. Obviously, we understand LinkedIn. It's a little tougher with the name, but do it.
Do it.
Your
anyway.
friends will love you.
That's right.
Steve, what'd you get up to the last 2 weeks?
I actually did two things. I went on a holiday to go surfing down in Cornwall, and in spite of it being England, it was 17 degrees Celsius and sunny in October, and the waves were 7 to 8 feet high. It was awesome. So that's what I did. And then I'd come home at night and I'd watch some KubeCon stuff.
Yeah. And
so that was my week.
Nice. My week was 10 degrees and cold watching KubeCon stuff. But same general thoughts. We can just jump right into it. KubeCon wrap up. First thoughts, opinions, security opinions. What do you think?
I'm going to go more holistic. It felt, so some of the feedback I sort of was gathering off Twitter, et cetera, and people we know who actually made it there. By the way, Andy Martin did make it. Rumor has it he went via Croatia in the end.
Oh, nice.
But nice. I also heard of somebody who went via Canada. Apparently that was a legit route to get in. So maybe I could have done that. My bad. It was smaller. So instead of being 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 people, it was like 1,000 or 2,000 in a fairly big venue. But that might have made it better in some senses, right? So that was definitely a thing. And then I was quite impressed by the first day in terms of not including the obvious day zero events, which apparently is now day -1 and day zero. It kicked off well, focusing heavily on supply chain, which is, I feel, pretty obvious because it feels like this is the year of the supply chain attack, right? And that was good. That was interesting. Andy Martin's, the one we recommended, we both agreed you should watch, didn't work for the first 15 minutes. I don't know if you caught that, but that was like, great. But even if you cut the last 15 minutes, you got the idea of what he was trying to convey, where he broke things down. He even, unless I got it wrong, was even suggesting running redundant pipelines in that talk. And it was like, really? Is anybody going to do that? But anyway, it was great. SigStar was cool. I thought it was good, but it felt, even remotely, it felt small. It felt like there wasn't as much. You excluded all vendor-driven talks.
Yeah.
It felt a little.
Yeah, I think a couple challenges is one, a lot of uncertainty. I think a lot of partners dropped out, right? Because they're not going to send people. There's no real guarantee. I think that they were trying to plan for 5,000, 6,000, and then it just slowly whittled down. Doing a hybrid event, though, that's a significant challenge. I mean, I had a couple people I knew that were there, and they were running back and forth to do talks, and all in all, very well done. I think it's pretty cool. Even if KubeCon does go back, fully in person, I still think the remote option or the hybrid option is worthwhile. It's pretty cool because at the same time, I couldn't join things live. I got way more way more things that I could watch by checking out the videos and going through it at 1.5 speed.
Yeah, there's the future option for sure. I thought it was really good, and you're right. Running your first hybrid event, it's funny. I've run hybrid sports events in the past where we had live sporting and then we streamed certain things. First time we ever did it was a total disaster. So because your brain focuses on what's right in front of you, so you make sure that the talks are on time, that people arrive, they get their badges, everyone's wearing masks. Like you can imagine, you'd be hyper. So the fact that I think Andy's was the first talk on the day, if it had worked, that would have been amazing.
Very true.
Yeah, that would have been unlikely almost. So
yeah, there's so many moving pieces there. It went off pretty much without a hitch. So good for all the organizers. I guarantee there's some late nights there.
Yeah, I'm sure they're all a little stressed. I was like, this week, what's so remarkable? Yesterday, I did a talk at Pulumi's Cloud Engineering Summit about securing Nginx, right? That blog I wrote a while back. And Kat Cosgrove was running that with Maddie Stratton. And I'm like, do you people sleep? Like the KubeCon was last week and they have their own conference for 2 days this week, like yesterday and today. And it's like, what? Yeah. It was almost like a little bit like the Cloud Native Rejects, because there's a bunch of stuff on there I didn't see at KubeCon. It was still really good. So there you go. KubeCon Part 2. Go check it out. Cloud Engineering Summit, Pulumi.
That's the other thing we need to check out, the Cloud Native Rejects. We need to go see some of those talks.
It was last Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And it snuck on me because it was a Saturday. I signed up, and then I got an email on Sunday saying, hey, thanks for going to Cloud Native Rejects. I'm like, oh, crap. I missed the whole thing. So bad. My bad. Yeah, that's just bad planning and wanting to have a weekend.
Yeah, ping us. Let us know your thoughts. Looking forward to Valencia in May and Detroit in October, I think, next year.
Oh, cool. I didn't know where it was going to be.
It's Valencia.
Valencia. I used to work there.
Take a little trip over to Ibiza.
No.
Is that how you say it? Ibiza?
Ibiza.
All right, moving into the next thing. This is more of a K8's talk that you brought to my attention. Ephemeral Containers, I believe, in K8's 1.22.
It is. I am going to jump it up there, and I can tell I was pre-scrolling uses for ephemeral containers. And that seems a bit small. It looks small to you, probably, right?
Yeah. You zoom in a bit.
All right, let me zoom in a bit. Bing. Oh, now I'm printing. That's no good. Probably also good, but I don't want to print it. Yeah. So the idea, I like the idea of it, right? It's largely debugging focused.
Yeah.
So something goes wrong with a pod. The more we move towards security, the less you want to equip a pod to be able to debug itself. Because does that make sense? Yes, I think.
Yeah. The main use case that I saw for this is you can remove all of your debugging tools that you would typically have in your running workloads because of you don't want a hacker to use it, but then you can use an ephemeral container, attach yourself to it with permissions. You're one more level away removed, or you're just one hurdle for a hacker or somebody who wants to exploit it out. Now, it is kind of interesting because like StackRox obviously had a bunch of, we watched the audit logs for, kubectl exec, and then we'd alert on that. Now it's just going to be, okay, well, there's that. And then there's also ephemeral containers. Are they being used? So there's the whole new workflow for this.
Yeah, I totally get it. And if you look at, they are citing distrolist images, basically secure images, which is by default. Actually, there's a good link here, which I've already got up, which is talking about using ephemeral containers to debug running pods, etc., and how to do it, which is good. So if you want to try, there's already a link there that kind of tries to explain, but you have to be using Kubernetes 1.22, etc., to make that happen. So my mind started going, it feels like an option to have more security focused containers with less capabilities, which is all good. Could this be attack vector all on its own? And is it going to create problems for other monitoring solutions that are kind of going to freak out that think containers are just kind of popping up?
Yeah. Because now all of a sudden you're going to have deployments that pop up probably with like a runtime, right? Something else is in the pod. Yeah, that's a good question.
Like eBPF based solutions that just see weird, like that are designed around anomalous behavior.
It will still detect it. I think that the issue is your solution going to be able to keep up with the speed? Right? Like your developers in there plugging around. I think in production, your runtime solutions should be able to block it anyways. Right? If you're measuring for different behavior and specific runtime events, even if it's an ephemeral container, if it comes up in your workload in production, it should get blocked. Also doesn't stop RBAC permissions from being abused. So just because you give developer a tool doesn't mean somebody's not going to use it. But honestly, this is the probably the biggest workflow that we see in Kubernetes is developers just in a cluster or something like that using kubectl exec to go and debug a bunch of stuff. And some security person on the other end is just like, am I getting hacked or is somebody debugging? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So it's just going to be an interesting challenge. I think it's one of those things where you kind of want a one or the other solution. And now you just implemented two paths. So now it's two workflows that the security teams have to account for, right?
Yeah. And I think it seems like a really cool idea. It's one of those things that until it starts to become a little bit more mainstream or it's past alpha where it is right now.
Yeah.
What new problems are we creating with this solution?
Yeah, because if we're being honest, if you're going to take the shortcut and just shove a massive container image into your cluster with all of the pieces that shouldn't be in there, just because you say an ephemeral container to get in doesn't really help, and then it basically just comes down to it's that next like top little piece of security. And if you're not doing all the other things, that part isn't really going to make too much of a difference, I think.
Yeah. I could see it being handy for solutions where like people like us, like people who do the debugging, people who would exec aren't doing this, but monitoring solutions take advantage of it to pop up an ephemeral container to pull the information you need and make sure it goes. So they use it because it's something they created and they're aware. They can even implement temporary security measures to create exceptions to allow that to happen and then take it away.
That's a good point. Yeah, because a lot of these solutions require like some sort of admin permission on the host. Instead, it's like, hey, you can use an ephemeral container if you just need this specific information and nothing more.
Right. So they can use that as a tool. So that would be good as a manager.
That's a good point. Yeah. I wonder if that's a lot of overhead. Right. You'd have to be very specific, like in terms of the information you're pulling, right?
Yeah, probably.
And then it is ephemeral. So are you like, because it's not going to have all the tools that the monitoring solution needs, depending on the image. But anyways.
Well, there was an interesting use case where you could copy a pod into an ephemeral and then switch its base image out. There was a use case there, which was like, oh, okay, so I can swap this distroless Alpine thing and copy it all into an Ubuntu, which gives me everything I need. So it was a really, it's worth a read to see some of the things that were there, unless I misunderstood it. It seemed pretty potentially powerful, which is why I was like,
It is.
Anyway,
we're going to have to test it out and follow up for some use cases. Honestly,
good tool time.
Great one. Speaking of Kate.
So you don't know this. I have imported this into our feed so we can play it.
Really?
Yeah, you ready? It's only a minute. Should we do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Here we go. Kubernetes, the movie.
Sounds do I good. Look at you? Look at Cam.
2013, it was clear that cloud was a thing, but most folks were focused on infrastructure cloud.
The dirty secret for a long time is people who are either building their own data centers or using colos. There's a huge resource waste.
And so at that point, automation tools are all the rave. People are now trying to abstract away the servers.
Google was looking for ways to apply its internal infrastructure expertise to the cloud.
As we started looking at technologies like Docker, we were impressed by the strength of what they'd accomplished in solving a very specific problem.
This is going to happen with us or without us.
Google had to make a bold move in the cloud space to be the long-term winner.
Every big startup I felt like had a container orchestration project, and half of them were announced at DockerCon 2014.
Open source is most successful when it's played as a positive-sum game.
I like the trailer.
Yeah, that was well done.
It was. What I laughed at is that it has 8 thumbs down on YouTube at the moment.
No.
Who's not liking that? It has like 1,400 thumbs up, but who's got the thumbs down on it? I don't know. Purists? I don't know.
Yeah, people who just love VMs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But look, it looks super well produced. I don't know who Honeypot is making it actually is, but it sounds they've got all the right people, that's for sure. That looked solid.
It's going to be interesting to hear just the progression of Kubernetes. It all happened pretty fast.
Yeah,
DockerCon 2014 is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And just the orchestration wars in general. It's kind of, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for like the product managers as they were making decisions. Like, because Google basically handed it off. It's like they handed it off to the CNCF. Was that on purpose? Like how did that decision get made? And just interesting.
Yeah, it'll be super fascinating to see what that looks like, and even how long it is. Like, I don't know. That's just doesn't even say when it's coming out, but I like it. That'll be
coming soon.
Coming soon. Yes, which if in the pandemic can be 2 years.
Yeah. Yes, coming soon. Cool.
All right, awesome. Next one is something you submitted, which I think looks very cool, but I'm gonna let you take over the description.
Yeah, more product announcements. This is Kubewarden. I believe this is Rancher's baby. If anybody wants to correct me on that. Basically, the feedback was OPA is a little too annoying to work with as a policy engine, especially with Rego. So Kubewarden is the alternative to that, where you can come in and you can write policies in the language that you like to use, and the engine will apply those in your cluster. So it's like OPA, but without Rego and the freedom of choice with the programming language you want to use.
How does that work?
First thoughts on this, Steve, before
I think I agree. I think we've said this several times. I mean, there's no secret. I think writing in Rego is a barrier to entry for policies. So, and the people who should be writing those rules are exactly the people that don't like programming based barriers to entry. So kind of flies in the face of what would make sense. The diagram looks pretty straightforward. Server-based policy management, pushing policies into an OSI registry. Okay. It looks pretty cool, but I didn't quite gather how it really works. This probably seems like, how do you write a policy in anything you want? Unless, of course, it is like a
OPA underneath and it's some shim in between.
Well, that's okay. There you go. You said it, not me. There's probably just some basic docs I can click on like that tell me. So so it's written.
The policy server, it's their own.
So this confused me. I think you're cleared up. It's a Kubernetes dynamic admission controller, sure, that validates incoming requests using policies written in WebAssembly or WASM, as it is known. There it is. There, WASM.
Oh yeah.
But then you go over here and you've got Rust, create a new policy. I'm like, oh, okay, so I can create policies in Rust. And then right below it, Rego. Well, hold on. I thought I was trying to get rid of it. Get away from Rego. I guess I still can, right? It's still compatible with, because if you've got, I don't know, 10,000 policies written in OPA, you're not going to throw that away, right? You use that, and then you start writing policies in Rust because you like Rust until nobody likes Rust, which will be in 3 years when there's a new language. And then you move on to whatever that language is. It is popular. Go used to be popular. It's still popular.
Yeah. It's just not for the cool kids.
No.
Anymore.
There. Go, Swift, TypeScript. Yeah. So they've got, what's under TypeScript? Maybe that's a little too new for now, but it's interesting that they're extending to other languages. So is that going to be what gains traction? I don't know, but I like the idea.
Yeah. Very cool for, I think, on a use case basis and getting people into writing policies and understanding them. There's a whole community section to community maintained policies. You can go in there and check out some pre-configured ones, which I think is great for getting people moving. I always wonder how you scale this stuff, because just do you have a whole team that writes in the same language that all understands it, and then okay, we apply the policy? Somebody else comes in to look at our policies from another team. Do they understand it? Yeah,
great questions.
That's always the issue with OPA, right? I mean, how do you scale it? And so you have all these other companies that came in, took OPA, and created a UI and actually made it usable, right? That's the biggest, to me, that's the challenge. You either solve OPA and usability and scalability, or you create an alternative. At least we have options. I'll say that. We should try this out though.
Yeah, it looks cool. Outside of it, well, we compare it with Kyverno is kind of the other big competitor to OPA. And I don't know, I think I'm almost still more of a Kyverno fan, just because I just find their rules so super easy to read, you know?
Yeah.
And it's YAML for better or for worse, but it's just so even a brain dead dope like me can read what the policies are trying to do, and it's super simple.
Yeah, YAML gets a lot of hate, obviously, for you kind of get just way too many YAMLs. But at the end of the day, if I come in and I'm brain dead, which is half of the days I work, I kind of like just looking at YAML all the time.
Just thanks. I know exactly what it's going to
do.
Out
sometimes. Yeah, exactly.
All right. That's that was cool though. Let's see if we start seeing that, is spoken about in the same sentences, Gatekeeper and Kyverno and all of those other wonderful things.
Yeah. I mean, a couple other big announcements too. Two more
big announcements. 2 more in this section. All right. Boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
This one. There it is. There's the most important lineup at the top. The artist formerly known as StorageOS, so the company formerly known as StorageOS is here. StorageOS, which storage solution.
Yeah, so it's been around for a long time, 2017, 2016.
Yeah, I want to say what's the other one? Portworx, what other storage solutions are available? Yeah, there you go. So they've been around for ages. We did a meetup, a physical meetup maybe a month ago now, at Alex Chircott, who is the CEO for StorageOS, came, and which was interesting, right? This is pre this changeover, so obviously they're getting out there and they're talking, and some ex StackRox folks like Richard, who was I don't know if he was the MD or senior VP over here in EMEA with me, is now leading the charge here at Ondat, which is, I guess, a healthy rebrand because StorageOS wasn't an OS. It was hard to understand already out of the box. And it is an abstraction layer around data management, which will be released as a SaaS solution as opposed to not before.
Yeah.
So seems like a good idea. I have already heard somebody call it SNCC for data, which I thought.
Yeah, I saw that. That was pretty funny.
That's a good quote.
Yeah.
So that would be very complimentary as well. So not bad.
Yeah, it's solving a problem, I think, that's been pretty consistent in Kubernetes in general for, I don't know, ever since Kubernetes came out. And data is going to continue to grow and scale. So I think it's in a good space. I still haven't figured out storage in Kubernetes, especially with any workloads that you need to move. Looking to try this out. Get started for free. We need to fire this up and try it out.
We need to. Well, we know people who are there. There's a guy named Ram who's like their SA, so we can get him on the show and he can give us a run through on whatever the free version is or the freemium model.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting move for them.
I like the colors.
I like the colors. Yeah. All right. Are we in a new? We're transitioning.
This is you had one more announcement that you wanted to bring up. Hot off the press.
Oh, hot off the press. Let's do it. All right. Yeah, you're right. This is an internal release of Helm Scanner GraphViewers. I need to describe what this is. I think it was earlier in the year, way earlier, at Bridge Crew, wrote a kind of persistent script that runs, and it uses Checkoff, our internal tool, for scanning Helm charts just for misconfigurations or just bad practices and all this kind of stuff, right? You can see Artifact. Our theory is that Artifact Hub hate us for doing this, because since we started doing this, all sorts of rate limiting showed up on their API. And some of the key things we were using have changed in a non-back compatible way, yet still say V1 to break our scanner. But
nice.
Sorry, we've adjusted. It still works. So, and then recently, in one of my early things was to add vulnerability scanning. So if we are going through, we find here's a static example where we're scanning a particular Helm chart. If there is a link to an image in there, fire the image off and run a little scan. So now we have a connection between misconfigured Helm charts and the images that they reference. And if you pick one that's less complicated, actually, let's do this. Actually, I really quite like the search. Let's do search, and I just type something that you might know, like Grafana. Oop, I can spell it. Okay, so I can go Grafana. Great. Bang.
Yep. Blast radius.
And so you can kind of look at what's inside here in terms of Grafana, and then if there's an image, then we'll try and scan it. And that is
PSP.
But if there isn't, if it's fine, then it's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Why did I choose one that didn't actually have any vulnerabilities? But you get the idea. Now,
how's it doing the mapping? So between the CVEs, because like normally there's a bunch of CVEs in an image because you're never really going to fully get, you're never going to get rid of vulnerabilities. It's also about looking at impact. And
yeah, so let's look at Prometheus. It'll be way worse. So
there you go. Yeah.
So you see the connection from misconfigured deployment over to, it's a little busy, but you can see there's the image, and then there's the vulnerabilities that are there. And we're not showing any vulnerabilities that are under 5. So these are over 5.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you can see a combination of these two. Now, this is in its infancy. This is literally released like 4 hours ago.
Oh, wow.
And so we don't have a summary on here of how many of what. We're going to probably change these to icons so you can see like a little bit more visual what it is. But the idea of creating this, I think it's created using NetworkX. So we have a graph of all of this, and we can start to use searches that can say, well, search for misconfigurations that are rated by our database. So say the Bridge Crew database of misconfigurations that are high, and there is a vulnerability in the image that, so kind of like what StackRox used to do, or does, where you can start doing queries though on known Helm charts from here that show you smarter, more risk-based assessments. But in the meantime, and also filtering, we're going to add filters up here that allow you to say, well, get rid of these kind of things or get rid of those kind of things. So sliders that make this a lot more interactive. But it's pretty cool for a couple hours old.
Yeah. I'm not exactly, and is there a way that you can map, let's say you have a web server and there's some sort of vulnerability with the web server, that the configuration with the chart also means that it needs to be exposed, that they can highlight that?
We could do that. I mean? That kind of information is in the data that powers this. It's just not exposed.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that's going to be one of the bigger stories too, is how powerful the security solutions at saying, hey, here are your CVEs, here's your level of risk, so to speak. But then also you actually use this in the container. These are the programs that run. You might have some dependency that's not really used that much. Maybe we shouldn't highlight that. It's only used in one application. You should focus on some other, bigger things, right? But yeah, impact and priority is huge, right?
I think if there's impact would be solid. I don't know right now of a company that does a super good job of that, like absolute impact. Like Contrast Security kind of does that, but they're using an IAST solution which instruments the runtime environment, and they can do it. But I think like the future will be somebody will create an ABPF based solution that shows you here is exactly what is happening.
Yeah.
And this is vulnerable because it's used. That would be pretty cool.
To me, the challenge is always you have to be opinionated about what risk is. So you're never going to get a very useful workflow.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see if you have some sort of AI that has some default defined walls about what risk is that you can teach and say, hey, these are the things I care about. And then it will make changes to risk appropriately.
Yeah.
But then again, now you just have an opinionated AI that might miss some things because you're giving it biased feedback. You don't really know what is risk to you. So there's always this this challenge, right?
Totally. Risk. Hard to be opinionated about risk unless you understand the context in the industry and the compliance and the whole other things. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Risk has been my avoided buzzword for the last 2 years, I think.
Okay.
Speaking of risk, if you're a part of this next story, I feel bad for you because it's a good one. Moving into the crazy stuff.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
Yes. Into the CVEs. Not a true CVE.
Sorry. There we go.
But I thought this was hilarious because this came up on my radar. A student hacked what exactly? The external IPTV systems and did a Rickroll prank on his school district before graduation. Got into the system and played Never Gonna Give You Up across all of the IPTV systems.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Can you play it?
I don't know. I don't know if it'll play. I should have downloaded this one too.
The sound might not come through, but
yeah, that's no good, is it?
No. Oh, he got it though. They got it. So there's a countdown, so everyone's paying attention. And yeah, too good. more of these hacks, less random supply chain hacks. These are funny.
Yeah, that's good.
Supposedly one of a simple bug, all it needed was a firmware update since 2020, and nobody updated it.
Yeah, it said, well, there's a comment here which I now if you read, the hack took years to arrange.
Yeah.
Going back to 2017, like this guy's been kind of monitoring it since, waiting for that moment.
Yeah,
that's a 10 out of 10 Rickroll.
And no one got in trouble from the school administration. That's super nice of them. A big part of this is because they wrote a comprehensive report and sent it to the school's IT staff detailing their findings and how it was executed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like an externity spokesperson did not respond to a request for comment. Oops.
Too funny. This actually leads into one of the other WTF stories. Excuse me. Yeah. Speaking of WTF, right there, let's just get into it. All right.
Is this mine?
Yes, this is yours.
Oh, I got a funny load there. I'm going to refresh. No, we don't use Kubernetes. There we go. By Malik Zumstrill. This caught my eye. It was actually from back in September, but it was posted on LinkedIn because somebody went, oh, the answer to the question, do you use Kubernetes? Now, this is probably from a career point. We shouldn't be saying this, but it's a really well-written article going through why people use Kubernetes in terms of large-scale organization, containerization systems, and what it has going for it. And then actually goes into pretty good detail of what Ably, who is an ably.com blog, how they do what they're doing. And I'm not going to get into it. I mean, you can read the links in the show notes, but it goes through, and everything you read, I think at a glance, he would say, oh yeah, you should use Kubernetes for that. But then he says, well, I could, but it would actually, if you look at I think I mentioned earlier, how many problems do you create with the solution? Yeah. They determined that actually Kubernetes we don't need it. If we keep it simple, then we can just leave it as is, and all of the things you're reading, there you go. How would our environment and processes change? And it just would make it harder, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's shocking, but correct.
Yeah, I think companies are starting to figure this out, especially ones that had monoliths. So it depends on how big your application is, if you're really using a microservice architecture or not. Some previous work that I used to do, the beginning of adopting Kubernetes was taking a massive application and shoving it into a container and trying to run it in Kubernetes. And it's kind of like, well, can you just use a Docker container on a VM for that? Or there really is no advantage. You still just have a monolith in a container, right? So until you separate that off, why are you paying for all those services? There's a reason why managed services are growing, right? Why companies like OpenShift or Red Hat and OpenShift exist, because I think you either go one of two ways. Is you get into a place like EKS, then you're going to grow and scale, and you're going to realize all of the pieces that are needed to really manage it. And you're either going to say, I don't want these pieces, I can scale down, or here, I'll pay you to take care of those pieces for me. Right?
Yeah, it is interesting. He's talking about, there's a good section here on resource management where he's talking about packing servers as the minor advantage of utilizing better use of spare resources, whereas they're just kind of doing a very one-to-one mapping of what's happening here.
The biggest advantage for Kubernetes is the next sentence. It also has the major disadvantage of running heterogeneous services on the same machine, competing for resources. That's the biggest thing, is you have it's basically scale for Kubernetes and orchestration. It doesn't make sense if you have a couple machines, or you're not going to get the most out of Kubernetes. But when you're talking about multi-cluster and across a bunch of different regions and things like that, Kubernetes will be able to scale infinitely better than any other solution, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think what they've done is they've realized that because they don't need some kind of insane scaling solution, they have just said, forget it. Let's just have something that's just constant, simple, and that's it. But they're doing all the things, but they get into other solutions, multi-cloud strategy, etc., hybrid cloud readiness, infrastructure as code. Like all this stuff still works, but then they get into added costs of complexity. It's just a full engineering team just to keep the Kubernetes clusters running.
Yeah,
there was yesterday at Cloud Engineering Summit, Chris Nova did a talk about infrastructure as software, because it was a Plumie conference, right? So that seemed appropriate. But there was a comment in the notes during the talk, which was, Kubernetes is easy now to get up and running. It's hard to keep running. And a kind of a similar statement being made here.
I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I remember when I first started with Kubernetes and using like kubeadm and bootstrapping and all that. Yeah, it was challenging. And now you have companies like Rancher who've made it infinitely easier to get going with wide open defaults and open source charts that you don't really understand exactly what you're installing in the cluster. It's simple doesn't mean operational. But
right, that's a very coined right there.
Oh yeah,
I like it. Simple
does not
mean operational. Good.
Awesome.
All right. Next, unless you got another.
No, that's another one. This one just if anybody knows anybody part of this project, let me know. I'm trying to figure out the use case for this. OpenSSF, securing the open source ecosystem. And
I don't get it.
Working groups, town halls, trainings. To me, it's like just a meetup under a different banner.
Why is it I don't understand why it's a foundation and unto itself.
Wait, click on the Explore membership button there.
Sure.
At the bottom left. Membership inquiries. Yeah.
But this isn't individuals from what I remember. Just looking at it.
Membership tiers.
Here you go. It's a premier. So we could become, I think, just associates, nonprofits for free. But look at that.
What if should we fire up a little Patreon, get enough money, and then just show up as the show?
That's a great idea. Yeah. Let's crowdsource $270,000 so we can have some kind of
well, we just be general pricing, see fee scale, and then just show up. What's going on, guys?
Fee scale. Oh, I see. Well, we have no employees, so we just need 10,000. Easy.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just way too many foundations, way too many projects.
We're going to end up eating our words, and this is going to be like, we're going to be in 2 years, we're going to be members of this stupid thing, and we're going to be like, oh, well, we were wrong. But
yeah, I just want somebody to explain the vision for me. That's what I wish. I wish there was like a little video at the beginning talking about it.
Technical vision, values, FAQ. We would just take a quick glance on this before we, not what is, I want why is, why now. Let's try that one. Open source pervasive consideration. I don't.
That's a lot of words. It says nothing to me.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. All right.
As somebody who rambles, it's there.
You could have written this.
Oh yeah. Hit my SEO targets with that. Those 2 sentences.
Oh yeah, this is definitely crushing SEO. So it's going to expect it to come up in a lot of security searches. Probably good.
Yeah. So if anybody knows a little bit more about that organization, wants to come in and talk about it, happy to be corrected. But I saw that and was just kind of in shock by it because I didn't really understand what the applicability of it was. And I'm kind of like, okay, we have a foundation. What does it oversee? Because it would be cool. Let's say, you have SIG security in Kubernetes, and then you have, open source infrastructure tools, and you have operating systems. And if there was some way of saying, hey, we understand how you guys all report security vulnerabilities or tackle them, is there a way that we could do this manageably where we can have a reporting tool that's well formatted or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, eliminating, normalizing the spirit.
Yeah. Like most organizations, there needs to be a little bit of context transfer between these different tools and thoughts. So
yeah,
to me, it's almost like open source is just, it's getting that pyramid architecture now. Doesn't run as flat as we thought it did.
Yeah. Maybe we should set our own foundation. That's food for thought.
Yeah. The CF Foundation.
Yeah. CFF. All right.
Nice.
New thing. This was you added another. We almost have a dashboard per week.
Yeah.
At the moment. Here we go.
And that's why it's in WTF, because it was another foundation, ? Another dashboard, ?
Dashboard? Really? That dashboard, I thought that dashboard problem was solved. I haven't seen a demo. I don't know. You looked it up. Have you tried it? Where are we with this one? Color themes, that's important.
Color themes are cool.
Yeah.
I was just talking about colors earlier on the show. Very big fan of colors. I wonder if there's a correlative relationship between providers offering a Kubernetes service and dashboards. It's like for every company that wants to provide a Kubernetes service, another dashboard shows up in the open source ecosystem. Right?
Could be, yeah. I think there's definitely some trend math going on there. I like this, though, the beginning of a pleasant experience.
I mean,
interesting.
It's kind of hinting at how people have felt about dashboards over the last couple of years.
And a girlfriend who said that once. That didn't go well. Yeah, so good evening. I guess you can make it, I guess it's designed to run friendly. I don't know that it's unfriendly, but maybe that we're going to add this to our big list of tool time options and take a run through it. If it's written by a single individual, reach out. Toboshi, I'm going to guess.
What do you think about a show that is all tool time of quick open source tools, and we each do like 3 or 4, and it's just like, here's the notes, the cliff notes.
What, you want to do one of our shows, or is this a new show?
One of our shows where it's tool time show, and that's all we do is
that's a good idea.
We take a week and we come in 3 or 4 open source tools. Here are the highlights. Here are the lowlights. Here's what they need to work on. Next tool.
Oh, that'd be great. All right. So if you're watching this right now, put something in the chat. Tell us what tools you can't be bothered to try, but you want to see, and we'll kill that in a tool time super special.
Yeah. And if you don't get the wrap up in 5 minutes, You have to, if you don't get it in 5 minutes, $20 to charity. It's got to be quick.
All right. Yeah, there you go. So these are bite-sized, super bite-sized tool times. We can then cut them up and release them individually. I like it. I do a whole show. Let's see how many we can get in. If we have an hour show, technically we could do a whole bunch.
Yeah.
All right. I like it.
I think 5.
All
yeah,
right.
5 each. We'll do 5. 25 minutes, an hour, a little intro, outro.
Because we're getting behind, aren't we? Our tool time list is getting longer than the number of shows that we are planning on ever doing in our lives.
We'll do a New Year's special or Christmas special.
I like
time. Here are the gifts.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to spend time with friends and family. Forget that. Let's play with open source tools and then do it on Twitch or a YouTube show. Perfect. All right.
Okay, this is the last WTF coming up, and I put this in here. Probably should have put it after the Kid Rickroll just for contrast. I don't know if anybody saw this story. There was a website, I believe, is it Missouri? Yes, Missouri news organization. So
it is.
Government had a website in there. It wasn't exposed, but in the source code of the website were a bunch of Social Security numbers for people who worked in the government. This got pointed out to them, and then the reporter reported on this, and they were saying that, oh, you got this information, which means you hacked us. It's like, no, you served this information up.
Yeah.
And I can't tell if this is just willful ignorance, because honestly, there are some people who just don't know anything about computers. So if you try to explain this information, they just be like, oh, they must have hacked us. How they get this information? It's like, no, you screwed up. But I don't know. Either way, I'm hoping it's just incompetence. This obviously will never get through. But there was this one. There was the one in the UK where the hacker reported it, and then the cops came knocking on his door, and I just kind of get annoyed at that stuff. Like you're trying to do good things, and then some random person decides, hey, we're going to come after you. I don't know. And then what was contrasting that was a bunch of school administrators who actually handled a hack properly.
Yeah, there you go. That we should have done this back to back. People have said, thanks. You didn't do anything mean, and now you've told us how you did it, so we can close the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better. Funny, though. All right.
Yeah, especially going after a journalist for that. Hey, you hacked us. We're going to put you away. It's like, no, we're reporting. You just leaked a bunch of people's information. They should know.
They should know. Exactly.
Anyways. Going on to some big money. Well, a couple big money things, right?
We have a question first. Can we do this question first?
Yeah. Oktoberfest. I don't have any thoughts. Do you, Steve?
I do have thoughts. That's why I want to do the question.
Go ahead.
So we did so at Bridge Crew, we did a Hacktoberfest for the first time, even though everything we do is open source. So should have done it previously. I like Oktoberfest. And we did it thinking, because in Chekhov, we thought policies are super easy to add, right? And if it's open, all those policies we don't get time to do, people will do them for us. And they'll be great. What happened was people submitted gargantuan changes, like scanning of JSON, raw JSON, which we didn't have, Cyclone DX, software bill of materials export. We were like, whoa.
Yeah.
These are full engineering efforts that came in during Oktoberfest that we were like, what the? We're doing an office hours next Friday to go through the top 10 insane contributions that we would have never had time to do ourselves. So having experienced this side of it and not the contributor side, I think it's amazing. In our case, but I think people get
this is some pretty cool options.
Well, it's nuts. What are we offering people? A T-shirt. We have engineers getting paid salaries, and it's like we should do that. We should have thought of that and said, make our website way better. We'll give you a cluster T-shirt.
Yeah. Hell, I had this conversation in marketing a long time ago. T-shirts, stickers are cool. Mm-hmm. If somebody puts that much time in, give them something that's branded that they're going to use. Could you imagine if somebody sent me a Yeti microphone and they're $100 or something like that, like branded. So on every single call from now on, I have this little like CF microphone. It's like, thanks for the effort.
We should do that.
Yeah, because to me, it's better to have something that somebody actually uses. It's not throwaway for marketing. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Are you anti t-shirt or are you pro t-shirt?
I'm pro t-shirt. Sorry,
Okay,
t-shirts are good, but it's more of a. I don't like the like random keychain tags and stuff like that, or stress balls.
Are those balls that are plastic that you bounce them and they flash, and if your dog eats them, they die?
Yeah,
those are bad. Those are bad balls.
Yeah, you tell them. Bad balls.
Bad balls. I think what we need to do is we need to make some CF baseball caps with the logo on the back so that you can see them when you're wearing them.
Yeah. It's right here.
Done.
Nice. All right. Moving into, well, I mean, if anybody follows my advice, their marketing budget's going to go way up. So big spenders incoming.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. I just noticed in the chat too that Yaren said Raspberry Pi giveaways. You're missing the point entirely. I have Raspberry Pis right there. Guess what they're branded as? You don't know. Netscape Navigator. No. Yeah. We want stuff we can see.
Yeah.
All right. He just wants a Raspberry Pi from us. All right. Check it out.
GitLab. Yeah, this story is, the IPO is a little late, but the valuation that it's at right now and continuing to grow at is also the continuing story, right?
What's it at now? Have you checked before the show? Because this is 108, but what's it? You can like look at it offline, and I'll just talk about it. I think we had on the show a while back, either we didn't or we did, I can't remember now, where we mentioned that we found something online that indicated GitLab was about to IPO, maybe ahead of their intended public advertising of said IPO. But they've gone nuts, totally in keeping with this industry.
The conversation started earlier this year. I found the article. They're weighing options in January because the company was valued at $6 billion. Mm-hmm. Then they IPO'd 105 a share, went up to 115. So it's like I think they made like $1 billion or something like that day. They made 250 million. It's back down to 105, but GitLab is how old as a company? Oh, there goes the camera.
Oh, it's like on.
I'll
keep talking.
I said like the timing. Just clicked in. Yeah, their valuation is just crazy for a company that's 5-6 years old. The one thing that I wasn't shocked at, if you read a little bit more into GitLab, is their returning customers year over year is 97%.
Yeah, it doesn't suck.
Because a couple of my last companies used it. I'm a huge fan of GitLab. I think they do a great job. Integrations are great.
Everything works. It's got security built in. It's got free.
Biggest
versions.
thing to me versus GitHub. Sorry for cutting you off. The biggest thing to me was how they manage projects and people. Was because you get into GitHub and you have different repositories, or you have it under one organization, but you can do that organization and you can also do it by project in GitLab, and that was a huge aspect. There's just one more layer, so you could separate by team too. Pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Yeah, it is a great project. No questions. Happy they're doing awesome.
Yeah, and they snapped up some Stack Rocks people, so
they yeah.
Hopefully they're doing well.
Yeah. I think I said to you when I went IPO, it's like, oh, I didn't take a job with them about 2 years ago. I'm an idiot. Hey, here's the next one. I think two weeks ago, we reported Orca getting 550 million in like a Series C. And now Wiz, and I think I said at the time, Orca said, our biggest competitor is Palo Alto Networks. And I said, no, it's not really. It's Wiz. Wiz is exactly the same thing. And boom. Series C, what did they get? Another 250 million, bringing their valuation, well, they're saying their valuation to 6 billion. But it does, I think, I saw another article, it does technically make them from coming out of stealth to valuation to be the fastest rising security unicorn.
Yeah. I think that has more to do with timing than product.
Yep.
And probably the way we value things. But still,
and the next thing to get Series C will then be the largest. I think Orca was the fastest growing unicorn for 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just the growth right now is insane. Cloud costs are skyrocketing. Security breaches are proliferating. Nice, fun article. Good for them. That's some crazy numbers. So
it's nuts, and it keeps happening, and it makes for a great show. So thanks.
Mm-hmm. And is it that time?
It's time.
It's that time.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Yes. So what
Here
are we
we
showing
go
off today, Steve?
I have, so this is a product of some plan around I did after actually having a conversation with the folks at Weaveworks, and I was going to I'm roughly familiar. If you're not familiar with Weaveworks coined the phrase GitOps, so they're to blame essentially for all of those things. They have a product range which is based, they have an open source product called Flux, which is donated to the CNCF, which is designed around continuous delivery and GitOps based synchronization and workflows, which is cool, kind of what everybody does. So they do have a product like Core Enterprise that does all sorts of drift detection and things like that between different platforms. They have the notion of applications, a little bit like what you mentioned with GitLab in terms of projects. So it's pretty cool. But I wanted to go try let's just jump over here. So this is me playing with a Kubernetes cluster and giving observability. Now you can see they have deployment, explore, monitor, a bunch of stats, which looks really cool. I needed a Kubernetes cluster. So once again, this has probably logged me out. Let's see if this works. Sivo has a very short time in terms of kicks you out, which is good. It's not a problem. So
15 minutes.
Yeah, it's very fast. So I had to log back in, but I created a Kubernetes cluster in Sivo because it's easy, and they're fans of the show, by the way, worth mentioning. Installed a few things on it, like, well, traffic comes by default because it's K3S. Stuck in Nginx is something I installed manually. Cert manager for all that kind of stuff. So really bare bones, right? There's nothing hardly there. And from there, I attached it to Weaveworks. So I can see that if I click Explore, you can see I've got Explore. Then I click Graph. So Weave Scope, another free thing you can go get from Weave that gives you a nice visual. Lots of visualizations are available, but most of them good ones you got to pay for. So you can click and you can kind of substitute yourself in, see all the connections light up. If you want to do a describe, you can click here and you can see the logs, get a describe. It's a in some aspects, I find Weave Scope a little clunky, and then in other aspects, I find it actually really handy and really useful. So the visualization, the network connections are all pretty cool. Like Weave way back was all about connectivity as opposed to GitOps. So that's kind of cool that you can see all this. So
if you click, sorry, do you mind? Can you click like processes, containers, host just above your cursor, so that because you see how it's
here.
Or try hosts. I'm just kind of curious.
Oh, sure.
Okay, and then containers.
Oh, why do I have nothing to show? Good question.
Yeah, because
probably because it's K3S, maybe.
Yeah, and then maybe like I would be surprised if eventually it's by cluster. If you have more than one cluster, maybe.
This is the cluster drop down here, way up here.
Okay, so you pick that cluster. Okay.
Yeah, I only have one, but that's how you swap clusters.
The processes view is really cool.
Yeah, this is neat. You can see. So the K3S agent talking to here, talking to here, talking to here. Like it is really neat.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like is the internet below. That's just me. I like internet connections outgoing to be above.
Oh yeah, and also
it's kind of hidden down there.
I can't move it. Like if it draws it in a messy way, there's not much I can do about it.
Yeah.
But it's not terrible. You
That's
do
cool.
get inbound, outbound, remote ports. Like you do. It's very similar to, well, I mean, our common ground in terms of what Stockworks was achieving.
Yeah.
So
I do like that highlighted view though, the pop out.
This. So
Yeah,
yeah. Then it does, and it shows you there.
Huh?
It's cool. I mean, this wasn't meant to be a weavescope demonstration, but weavescope is cool. It's one of the older network processes, pods, visualizations.
Yep.
That has been around, so it's pretty mature. And even if you just get tired of it, you go, table, please. And then you can do the same thing again. Hosts. I don't containers, do I? Processes, and you can go through and take a look.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, it's pretty good.
Sorry for the detour.
No. This is like cool because I can see my top CPU usage. It sorts on CPU usage, so it's good. I think it's a really pretty thorough thing to use Explore. I don't know if I have monitoring turned on. Not for workloads, I don't, but for nodes I do. So I can see an in-time CPU, memory, disk usage. A little bit Prometheus-y, but I mean, it's all in one spot, right? So that wasn't really why I did it. What I did was the deploy option. Yeah. So it manages my deployments, and then I created this super simple Weave Nginx repo just for this demo, with some junk in it and a very simple deployment YAML, la-di-da, right? There it is with 20. But what was
Looks
cool,
secure.
because super, because I installed Code Server here, which we talked about recently, the VS Code Server. Bing, this popped up on my CVO, and ding dong, it looks like VS Code. What a surprise! And as far as I could tell, what was weird is that in order to get this to be here, I had to clone the repo inside the container, which is interesting because that got me goofing around with typing env and all the things that I would do if I was trying to see how exposed I was inside the container. I'm not sure how visual that is, but I just see what devices are mounted, because I didn't put the code server in.
Yep.
How I would want to be really sure about that container, because I have remote code execution here. I can do whatever I want with it, right?
Yep.
So be careful. But it's good. So it's connected. So now there's a way where I can say well, 21 is the latest, so I could do that. And it'll say it's modified. It'll say it's modified. I can save it out. Actually, it auto-saved, which is pretty cool. And if I wanted to, I can add that and just say upgrade Nginx, ding, push. And if that works, I should see deploy kickoff when it picks out that it, oh, there it goes, sync to cluster, popped up there, bam, deployed. So my continuous delivery is like hyper fast between doing that, and then suddenly I have my 1-to-1 cluster came up. So I was actually pretty impressed by the fact that I edited the within the Kubernetes cluster that I was actually deploying to. And it got me thinking, if I isolated the piece, like maybe I went with the open source, because this is I think eventually they're going to charge me for this. I think it's a 14-day free trial. But this is just a visual version of Flux. If I got Flux working on our website, then I'd have the same, I'd get code server running. I would do all the edits and changes, and I would self-serve our own website. So I'm probably going to take some of this tech and translate it into our own website, because it works very slickly.
Very nice.
That's what I wanted to show you. Not rocket science. If you're curious about with shortcomings of the VS Code server, not all extensions are there yet. So there's different versions when you go to install. See, like install in remote, there's like they have to have prepared it. So not all things are there. Like I noticed that the checkoff one isn't there. That's the one that I thought.
Yeah, you can take VS Code server and go and build your own and take that image, right?
Right. So it's not 100% parity, but the pilot's there. Spell it. Okay, well, It's in beta anyway. But yeah, I was super impressed. Like, you were gonna run VS Code. You were thinking of running in your house.
Yeah.
As like a
Well, yeah.
VS
What I
Code
was going to do is look at installing some local versioning. A couple different options for that, but like GitLab, for example, can run locally and has a runners or something like that. So you have VS Code, push it to your GitLab, which then goes and deploys in your development cluster. And however you want to run it, it's like you can do that all in one server, right? Where you're completely private and you have all of these open source tools. Well, GitLab not open source, but other options for that. You could have something like Quay that's running, or whatever you want to use for your image registry. And yeah, you can build your whole system on like one server that's remote. And if let's say you wanted to start a company or something like that, you had 5 or 6 people, you could technically just put it in-house. Like, it's at that point now.
Super startup friendly.
Yeah. Now, will it scale well? Probably not.
It's this classic question. That's how you want to sound super smart in a meeting, kids. Just say, will it scale?
But do you care if you're a startup? Probably not.
No.
Get it done. Solve that problem later.
Yeah, exactly.
Very
all right,
cool.
So that is the end of a whirlwind tool time.
Very nice.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
And now it's 5 o'clock somewhere. 5 o'clock for you?
It's 5 o'clock for me. I'm 8 minutes late for a meeting. Oh, well. Hope I'm not important. Am I ever?
Sorry. We have some good ideas for next time. It was Christmas episode special.
Exactly. If you're watching this now or in the future, please leave comments down below of the YouTube video and saying, I would like you to see you add this tool onto the show. We have it until, let's say, probably somewhere in mid-December to make decisions, and we will announce that.
Sounds good. Yeah, great. That was a lot of fun. There's a bunch of stuff. We were had a little week hiatus there, but a bunch of big announcements on that KubeCon. A couple hacks.
Yeah.
Let us know if you see anything else. You can comment. And other than that, we'll see you next week.
See you next week. My name's Steve Jaguar.
And I'm his co-host, Mike Foster. Thanks for joining in.